Hi everyone, welcome to Classics You Slept Through. We're the book podcast where we read you classic books that maybe you haven't read before, and then we sit around and discuss them like we're smart or something, which we are most definitely not. I'm your host, Kyle Davis, along with a girl who has never been to Transylvania, though she feels like she has, my sister, Meredith. How you doing today, Mer?
Pretty good, pretty good. You know, the university I used to teach at did a trip to Romania. So that's close to Transylvania.
Which is very close.
Yeah. I didn't go, but they did.
Okay. They did. I had friends from Romania when I lived overseas. Does that count?
Yes. Maybe they're...
Okay. I guess it's close enough. Well, we are discussing Bram Stoker's Dracula. We have finished the book. You loyal listeners who have hung through this very longer than we wanted book that we tried to rush through in a month, which
was your idea, I want to remind you.
It was, well, I just thought October, Halloween, Dracula, and here we are. It's the week of Thanksgiving when we're recording this, and still there's Dracula on our plates.
I was your optimistic enabler. I was like, yeah, we could totally do it. Yeah.
I still say, we were close. We almost did it. Well, anyway, hey, if you like what we're doing, long books accepted, of course, why don't you rate and review us over on Apple Podcasts? Let us know what you think. That just helps other people find the show. You can also just tell other people, hey, listen to this cool podcast show that reads you books. Spread it around. Spread the wealth. But anyway, so Dracula. We read the book about the Count. The book which is named after the Count, nominally about the Count, but it's not really about the Count, is it? He is barely a character through this thing. This book is actually told in reverse order. Well, I guess not reverse order, but in the past. We read, as readers, the story is revealed to us through letters and diary entries, and you sort of piece it together. Our first section kind of was time dilated, but then through the other 2/3 or 3/4 of the book kind of goes in almost chronological order. A few things here and there, but it's pretty much chronological order from then on out. And really, the main character of this thing, I would say, is Dr. Seward.
You think so?
Well, he's definitely the dominant voice, I think.
I disagree.
I felt to me like he had the most entries. Oh, you disagree?
I mean, if we're going off feeling.
Well, let's run down. Well, okay. All right. Well, let's run down our main protagonists here. We have 5 men and 2 ladies as our main protagonists, and then the Count as the main antagonist. And I guess you could count the 3 sisters. They're very, very minor antagonists. They sort of show up. And that's really it for characters. The rest of the people that we encounter in this book are either caricatures or very minor, in video game parlance, they're like the one-line NPC that does one thing and then you never see them again. So we start off with, we've got Jonathan Harker as our beginning.
Who seems like he's going to be the main character, right? He seems like he's going to be...
Right, so he dominates the first part of the book. He is an apprentice and now newly minted solicitor off to help Count Dracula with some land purchases. We then meet our 3 lovers, our 3 wonderful romantic characters. We've got Lord Arthur Godalming. Well, he becomes Lord Godalming, but Art, the rich guy, as we could say. Don't know if he gets much character development beyond that. We have Quincy Morris, the cowboy American. Don't know if he gets much character development beyond that. And then we've got Dr. Seward, the creepy guy who runs the asylum.
In his house.
And he is our primary voice. Yeah, he's our primary other voice besides Harker.
No, Van Helsing.
Well, Van Helsing doesn't... Okay, so Van Helsing gets a lot of dialogue as related to us by Seward. But Van Helsing doesn't get a whole lot of his own sections. There's a letter here and there. But mostly we hear Van Helsing's voice through Seward relating to us these conversations.
And Mina.
Right. So then so that brings up our two ladies. We've got Lucy and Mina. Mina, who marries Jonathan, so she becomes Mina Harker throughout the book. And Lucy, who becomes a vampire and dies, is murdered by our heroes.
She wasn't murdered. She was released and given the true death.
Yes. It was a mercy to cut off her head and stab a gigantic stake through her heart. So, all right. So I was thinking that Seward, he's definitely our main narrator, wouldn't you say? We see a lot of it through his point of view.
I guess now that you illuminated for me the fact that we don't actually get much direct from Van Helsing. Like, it's not Van Helsing's journal or Van Helsing's diary. We get the transcribed conversation from Mina and from Seward. But I still feel like Van Helsing looms larger in the book, despite the fact that we don't get his voice direct from him. We get it secondhand because everybody follows him. Like, it's his plan. It's he's the one who knows what to do, and so everybody is reacting to his knowledge and his plan, and Mina too. I thought. So you thought Seward was the main character, and I was thinking it was Mina and Van Helsing.
Okay, I guess put it that way. I guess, yeah, so let's amend it. Seward is our main narrator. Van Helsing, I guess, would be our main hero. He drives the plot.
Right.
The other characters don't do anything of their own volition, really. They just follow Van Helsing's lead. He's the expert.
Yeah. And then later in the book, they follow Mina's lead. Partially. Like, she says,
partially,
take me with you, hypnotize me. And she's really the key to finishing off Dracula.
Right.
Because they were going to leave her behind.
Right. They would not have found Dracula were it not for Mina getting bitten and half turned and then used as a Dracula GPS. So that brings up, so do you want to keep talking about these characters a little bit? I mean, there's not much to say about other than, Godalming is not a developed character. He's just the rich guy who loves Lucy, and his rich guy-edness is sort of the deus ex machina that it allows them to drive forward, because they use his lordship and riches as a cover and enables them to do a lot of things.
Yeah.
Quincy
Morris.
is just macho American guy who's there. Does he actually ever do anything?
Well, he kills Dracula.
Well, right, but they didn't need him to do that, right? I mean, anybody else could have done that.
They could have, but he stepped up and did it first, because he is he's number one. Brave American. He's number one.
USA. He is the brave American. Which they allude to. If America ever gets their stuff together, they're going to rule the world. Yeah. Which is interesting, because in 1890, we were not a world power.
Mm-mm.
Like, we were still sort of the isolationist. It wasn't until, I guess you could say, post-World War I, World War II, where we step up, because, I mean, we didn't even get involved in World War I until the very, very end.
Yeah.
So we were not looking to be a world leader in the days that Stoker is writing this book.
And then we couldn't get enough. Coup here, coup there.
We haven't stopped yet, right? Oh, Stoker, what have you wrought?
I know.
I wonder if American politicians in the early 1900s read this and thought, hey, maybe we could be.
We did kill Dracula after all. Yeah, Texas was a new state at the time, right? So Quincy Morris represents a lot. There's a lot packed into his, like, almost nothingness in the book, though. Just as his caricaturization. That's hard to say.
Yeah. And I think, too, it just, the appeal or the romanticism of this sort of Texas mythology and this Texas identity, it's reached overseas even by the 1890s, where, a Texan is a thing that is a known thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Without, but not
sort of the attitude and
Not without its condescension, though, with Van Helsing being like, oh, good boy, brave boy. Look at you. Everything's bigger in
Right.
Texas. We get it. Okay.
But really, isn't that how the rest of us treat Texas anyway?
Well,
Like, oh, okay, Texas, we get it. All right, you're Texas, great.
I don't know. When you lived there, you were like all about it.
No, I wasn't
Yes.
all about it.
Yes, you were. You started saying, y'all, you
Well, that's my
bought us all
life.
Texas stuff.
Of course, I buy you guys stuff from everywhere I've been.
Not true.
You have to get into it.
Is that true? That is true.
I actually, shout out, I like Oklahoma a lot better than Texas because they don't quite have they have sort of all the advantages of Texas, but without the attitude.
So they have the prairie dogs.
Boomer
Does Texas
Sooner,
have
baby.
prairie dogs?
They do. I know.
You
I think
love
they
prairie
do.
dogs.
Yeah, but I love prairie dogs.
What's not to love about
Man,
prairie
I saw
dogs?
so many prairie dogs up in South Dakota, man. South Dakota's got prairie dogs too. Oh, they're so cool.
They
Anyway,
probably all have COVID.
by now they do. No kidding.
100%
Dakota.
prairie dog infection rate. It's because they live in those little tunnels. There's no ventilation.
Close contact. They're not masking up. All right, so then we have Jonathan Harker, and he kind of kicks the plot off. He sort of stumbles into enabling the Count to move to London, and then he sort of recedes into the background. He becomes sort of a minor character at that point.
He had the most trauma, too, before Lucy and Mina. I think Lucy and Mina end up with the most trauma. But
Right. I mean, he went through a lot.
he was held prisoner. He was almost seduced.
He was in the nunnery, recovering for months or however long it was.
Refusing to speak of it. Didn't even think it happened.
Right. I mean, his notes end up being a key plot device and something that helps the protagonists figure out what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he earned his rest. He went through a lot in the beginning.
He did, and then he had to agree to cut off his wife's head. So he had to
That's an
mentally
honor.
prepare for that.
That's an honor, as Arthur told us. Like, you should want to be the one to have to do that. It's your responsibility as her husband.
And in the beginning with Jonathan Harker's part, that's basically where we get everything with Dracula. That's the only time we actually,
It's the only part where he's a fully formed character.
yeah.
Like, we interact with Dracula. We see Dracula. We hear Dracula.
He's interesting. He's alluring. He all from that is what all of the cultural, societal, pop culture draw. I mean, Dracula looms large in society despite the fact that he's barely in the book.
Right.
You know?
Past that first section.
And
Otherwise we see him shopping, and then he comes home to find some intruders, and he runs off, and then he gets killed.
he's not shopping. Unless you consider he's looking at that woman and stalking her, I think is what he's doing. Maybe that's shopping.
That's grocery shopping, isn't it? he's got to put something up for the evening.
But we talked last week, the absence of information makes it perhaps more interesting, especially when it comes to horror, because then your mind fills it in. Because as a culture, everyone, not just American culture, but everyone's filled in on an awful lot about Dracula and done an awful lot
Right.
with his character and the ideas of vampires in general. And you hear very little about Van Helsing, who's the hero. He's got a movie. I don't know.
The Hugh Jackman movie,
Yeah.
where he's being an action hero.
It's
When he's like a 60-something bumbling, not quite bumbling,
yeah.
but
It's like a
badly
dumpy
translated. He's got broken English. Yeah, he's got broken English.
Professor. Yeah, what even is his accent? Man, it was hard to do.
I don't know. Yeah, I didn't even try an accent, but
Oh, you didn't? I
the
did.
staccato, the staccato rhythm of his broken English was
It's hard.
interesting, because I would just, I can't do it. I don't even know a Hungarian accent. He was Hungarian, wasn't he?
Sure. Or maybe Austrian. He was in Austria a lot. Didn't he live in Austria?
True.
So it's more like a Arnold Schwarzenegger accent, which is not what I did.
Oh. That would have looked good with Hugh Jackman. He could pull that off. But I don't think a 60-something professor. Although, Arnie is isn't he 70 by now? He's
In
at least in
his
late
like
60s.
72 maybe.
Yeah,
Arnold?
I think he is.
Do you ever see him on the internet with his little ponies in the house and his dogs in the house? And he's got like...
He's a character.
He really is.
Anyway.
I think he's hilarious.
He is. No, he is. I love Arnold. He's great. Anyway, so did you see that a couple of years ago he did a video where he went undercover in a gym as like a gym manager?
Oh, really? How
And
do
like
you
half
go...
the people recognized him.
Yeah, I was gonna...
Half the people didn't. Like he tried to play it off. Like some guys were like, hey. He's like, I don't know what you're saying. You know, get out of here. But there was anyway, I'll show it to you later. But yeah, so Van Helsing isn't really, we don't get anything from his point of view. Everything from Van Helsing is secondhand from mostly Seward as he's recording his diary, and later he writes it out. He does go longhand. So he was recording in the beginning.
If you think about that, Seward and Mina are writing things out or speaking things out. So that means that they didn't translate his accent, or they made it worse. It's their fault he sounds like that.
Right. Seward's not paraphrasing. Seward is doing a Van Helsing impression into not his phonograph, his gramophone or whatever. Yeah, he is recording it. And man, Seward, that's kind of...
Mina had to listen to that. She's like, could you stop with the Van Helsing impression?
Stop with the phony accent.
Could you imagine like listening to someone read you something every 2 minutes as Arnold Schwarzenegger and they're not doing a very good job at it? Which is basically what it's like to listen to me read those sections. So it's basically
me doing Dracula. I mean, so if you all got through my Dracula impression, that is what Mina was listening to on Seward's diaries. He's aping Van Helsing's accent. That brings up another interesting point, that these people who are writing letters and doing diary entries and whatnot, I mean, they're transcribing conversations word for word down to broken English. Like, they're not paraphrasing anything. Because this book, if they paraphrased these diary entries, would be, okay, so then Van Helsing and us decided we were to go kill Dracula. I mean, that's like 4 chapters right there.
Yeah. Every single little word is what Stoker wants us to believe. They transcribe. But remember in the beginning we talked about Seward's journal was staccato. It was like, Renfield still eating flies.
Right.
I think I know why. We'll update later. It's like...
Right. Because he only had like the 2 minutes on the cylinder drum.
Then Stoker forgot. He was like, forget it.
Well, it's more interesting if we can actually have fully formed conversations. Yeah. I think he probably... So that brings up, if Stoker rewrote this book today, if I were his editor, I think what I would tell him is, you need an omniscient narrator in some parts to describe the action of the team so that you can give us these conversations. But then I think you could impart knowledge outside of what they know through diary entries and ship's logs and newspaper articles to spice it up and let the reader piece it together before the characters do.
Because sometimes
opposed to...
It's almost like he tried to throw a little bit of that omnisciency-ness while trying to keep it plausible that it's somebody's diary or
right.
Transcription, because he would like mention what he thought maybe Van Helsing was thinking with a sly smile or...
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so that like people are making assumptions on what other people are thinking.
Yeah.
And we're taking it as omniscient narrator gospel.
Yeah. Well, there's quite a few, I think, new renditions of Dracula. I think like maybe the BBC or Hulu or something has like a new Dracula miniseries.
Oh, okay.
Dracula Untold, or I don't know. I was going to look into it. I really want to watch the 1992 or 3 Bram Stoker's Dracula. That likes our posts on
shout out to their Instagram account. They should probably just give us a free copy or something, right?
Speaking of, also a shout out, if I can find it quick enough, to another podcast who, if I was more friendly, which it's not that I'm not friendly. If I was less introverted, then I could Open an Effing Book podcast. So I haven't listened. Sorry, Open an Effing Book. But they were covering Bram Stoker's life. And they dropped episode 1 back on October 20th. And they called him a man-child, which I thought was really interesting. And I need to go listen to their episode.
We'll have to do that. And then maybe we can report back next week.
Yeah. Shout out to Open an Effing Book.
Little cross-pod promotional. I like it. You know what I would watch? I would watch a BBC period drama of whatever Dracula is doing during this entire book. Like him purchasing the house in Piccadilly, and just strolling through the park.
Like an HGTV style show, Dracula picking out his estates and his houses, transporting his boxes. He's like, no, today's demo day. I need a coffin room.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he's collecting his money so he can get his ship's passage. He's, think about him talking to the harbor master. Like, I got to get these boxes onto your ship. He's like, what's in them? Oh, don't open them. Don't open them. It's just some dirt. Just leave them alone.
He's like, where are you going to put them? Where are you going to put my boxes? The guy's like, it's none of your business. He's like, no, you will tell me. Where are you putting my boxes?
I really need to know where to put these boxes.
That was an interesting part, was reading the ship's captain on Dracula's escape. The recounting of Van Helsing's conversation with this guy, talking about how he would say things with blood and with bloom and with blood and with much blood. And I'm like, is that like, I take it as surly sailor talk, intensity? Yeah.
Or like actual blood, like he's like got his Gatorade bottle of blood he's drinking while he's like, he's saying that with blood. He's like, taking a swig. What are you drinking there, governor? That's little blood.
I love that there were like spots in it where they really called each other governor. I thought that was just like a
I mean,
like a stereotypical joke that nobody actually ever does.
Well, how I don't know, classist. I mean, we know British are very classist people anyway, but they're transcribing like the workman's pidgin Cockney into their diaries. And then this guy said, "Cool, governor, bloody," you're like, all right, come on, man. Did you really have to write that?
And then a little note about the zookeeper, with the wolf zookeeper and his wife. He's like, because of their joke, I knew they'd done time. Basically, like, I could tell they were arrested. Like, what? No.
Everybody who is not the main characters are just these rough, workaday, criminal underclass of British society. Yeah, Stoker didn't have much use for poor people, I don't think.
Well, it obviously from Lord Godalming's ease with which he goes through society and lockpicks people's houses, like, your title gets you a lot.
It does. It definitely does. All right, so that kind of is our characters. Any kind of themes that we pull out of this thing that you saw? I mean, I think one of the big one that hit me on the head is, gender roles and gender attitudes. I mean, the women were given very short shrift in this. And Mina, is accredited. We joked about it a lot throughout the episodes, but she's got a man's brain and a woman's heart.
She's just nuts. It's not that she's just, why can't you just be smart? She's got a man's brain.
Well, because men are smart. That is why.
Are they? I mean...
No, absolutely. I would be the first to
are
admit
they?
We absolutely are not. Not really.
No, but I mean, like, the example of manhood, Quincy, nothing he did was particularly intelligent. Like, he was like, I'm gonna kill him the second I see him. I don't care who's there. And everyone's like,
I mean, he was shooting at bats outside the window and bullets are ricocheting in the room, and he's dashing out, crashing through windows to chase Dracula through the stables. I mean, yeah, he was very impulsive.
Was that just like a little humor break? It's like you interrupted Van Helsing and you put it in the transcription that he went out to shoot a bat. He's like, I hate those things. Right. Is it just his way of showing us, hey, Dracula was hanging out? That was actually him.
I think so. Or how spooked they are that, Morris is, stereotypical American. He, shoots first, asks questions later, and he's just kind of popping rounds off wherever he goes,
So Mina's got a man's brain, but she can't just be her own person and be smart. And they're always more beautiful when they're dead. And I read some stuff that, like, if you want to go into a deep analysis, which I don't necessarily want to do, but Dracula was really getting the men by taking their women, which was a bigger insult and a way to control them even more. And you taint their women, then what an insult that is. But Mina, again, is, I think, the hero. It's not like they're like, look, Mina, we need to use you as a GPS. Okay, I know you don't want to do it. I know you're scared. She's the one who's like, I need to go. You want to leave me here to protect me, but that doesn't make any sense. You need to hypnotize me. You need to take me with you. I know it's dangerous. It's fine. And then she's worried about how delicate Harker is the whole time because of his past experience. And she's pretty brave the whole way. She's in her special protective circle, and those women come, and there's nothing to suggest that she's weak in any way. And yet she's sitting there professing.
But she's treated as such.
Man. Yeah. And she says as much.
I think we could just say that Dracula's just kind of a horny dude, that he's only turning hot women. I mean, Renfield is throwing himself at Dracula, and Dracula's like, I don't want none of that. I'm just going to break this dude's back. Like he's got the three sisters, he's got Lucy, he's got Mina, but he doesn't attack or bite any of the men. I mean, I guess Harker,
he almost does.
Doesn't he do something? He almost does.
He carries him. Well, see, he's attacking the women, but he carries Harker tenderly back to his bed so the women don't eat him.
True.
So maybe he's actually more romantically interested.
Protecting.
Yeah. And he's got
protecting Jonathan.
He's got that sad line when the three lady vampires are like, "You've never loved." And he's like, "I have. You don't know." He's so sad. Which, there's a sensuality in the book, but I think vampires have been overtly sexualized and sensualized in pop culture. It's like we took a little hint of that, and then because the women tried to seduce Harker and he almost kissed one of them.
Almost, yeah.
But it's not as overt as I think it is in pop culture. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're right. But I mean, if you're a hot lady vampire, I mean, that's an easy way to eat men, isn't it? Like you lower their defenses, they kind of get turned on. They're like, oh, hey. And then you're just like on the neck, and there you go. Well, I mean, if you're like an old crone vampire, you're not going to you have to do some brute force or something to get close to people, aren't you?
You're like Nosferatu. He basically decayed.
Oh, man. Yeah. That was creepy looking.
You haven't watched it yet, but in the movie, What We Do in the Shadows, which is Jermaine Clement from Flight of the Conchords and I can never say his name. Taiki Waititi. Damn it, I can't say his name. I can't do it.
Taika Waititi.
All the New Zealand actors, all the New Zealand comedians. What each vampire in that movie is like a different version of a vampire. Jermaine is more like Vlad the Impaler kind of guy. Yeah. And then one of them is like Nosferatu, and he's like 8,000 years old. And they're like, and his name's Peter, Petyer. Like, hey, Peter, brought you a chicken. And they just throw it at him and run. And he's so gross and old. And he's got this big, all of his teeth are huge. Peter. Yeah. I don't think he's seducing anyone. Man. But vampires can hypnotize people. Dracula doesn't hypnotize anybody in this book. Van Helsing's the one who's hypnotizing everybody.
No. I mean, unless you count the state that they kind of put Lucy in before she gets bit. She kind of is sort of in that dreamy state, but she sleepwalks. But that's almost like she's sort of falling under the influence a little bit.
You're right. And the three sisters hypnotize Harker, sort of. He's in that sleepy, dreamy.
He's got yeah. And he probably hypnotizes the workers, because he's got the gypsies that help, that are moving his cart and things like that. So it's not like he's going out and just chatting with him, right?
Yeah.
They're fearful of him.
That's another point. Everybody seems to know about him, but they all help him. And I guess it's to protect, so he doesn't snatch their children, maybe? What choice do they have?
Like, hey, we'll do some work for you here, buddy. Just don't.
Please don't eat us.
You hunt elsewhere. Yeah.
If you're a good enough mason, he won't kill your family. But I gave you this new patio. I don't know.
So anyway, what do we? Do you have any other themes that we want to pull out to discuss, or should we go to overall? Is this a? What did you think, Viola? We have our guest pod host. Was this a slept through or stayed awake?
She should be asleep now, but she stayed awake. I think I stayed awake. Not as much as I thought I was going to, honestly. I think pop culture ruined me for this book. Here's what I liked the most about this book. The very beginning with Dracula.
So it was less interesting and exciting than you thought it was going to be?
I think so.
Okay.
So I really loved the beginning with Dracula. Then he disappeared, and I think I was kind of disappointed by that. I really liked the chase at the end where everybody is like converging on land by horse and carriage and river, and they're all coming towards Dracula, and then it's like, boom, stabbed him, he's dead. And the book's over.
Yeah.
I thought Dracula might put up a fight, or we'd see more of the sisters, or more of the idea of like, no, like the nest that dragons. Dragons. It's because Dracula.
He sits upon his
Dracula
mountain of gold.
Son of the dragon, apparently. I read about Vlad the Impaler, who apparently was.
Oh, interesting.
Who the name Dracula was taken from, and then that's pretty much it, because his actual ties to Transylvania are not
very strong.
But he did fight the Turks and the Ottomans.
Oh, interesting.
What's the other part? So the beginning, chase at the end.
I mean, the middle definitely drug. I think the middle could have benefited. So, we talked about the first section was a lot of the time dilation, right? It was some of Harker's journals. It was newspaper clippings. It was other things that were happening. And I think the middle got bogged down by here is chapters upon chapters of Seward's diaries in chronological order. I think this would have benefited a little bit had he stuck with his original conceit a little bit more, and we would have gotten a few more glimpses. I mean, we got a little bit of the Bloofer lady and whatnot, but I think a little more of Drax's activities in London, because I mean, he had 3 homes. He had the Piccadilly house, he had the West End house, he had the other one that obviously Jonathan didn't. Jonathan only arranged Carfax, right? Or did he arrange all the house? So he's obviously working with other companies to purchase other homes. And, there could have been more kind of mystery and intrigue and heightening that sense of terror, through the middle. Like, I felt the sense of terror died in the middle when we're just listening to Seward's diaries. Yeah.
Now that you mentioned that, Dracula had a conversation with Harker where he was like, is it okay to have more than one solicitor, or is that why would you only have one? And Harker's like, well, of course you only have one. I guess you could have more than one, but here's why you should only have one.
Business. Right. Yeah.
So that would lead me to believe that he had other people doing stuff, or at least lined up to do stuff once he got there. Because we don't know what he did once he got there or when he got there.
Right. Or he figured out that, oh man, Harker's on to me. I got to ditch this guy. Like, I got to burn this one and get a new one when I get to London. He's no good to me at this point.
I was also really intrigued by the character of Renfield.
Yeah.
This is not a character, like, I haven't seen a movie adaptation that's exactly like this book. So Renfield is not a character I'd even heard of before.
He reminds me.
You could do a whole movie on Renfield.
Yeah, Renfield kind of, in my mind's eye, reminds me of Brad Pitt in 12 Monkeys.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like, I
saw that once a long time ago.
Oh, it's a good movie. But he's sort of the crazy guy that's dropping the hints, that Bruce Willis is trying to figure out, and kind of ties everything, and you're like, oh, what is this dude talking about? This is kind of weird. That's sort of how I viewed Renfield.
Well, I did stay awake.
Okay.
I did.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm overall awake. So this was the second time I've read this book. I originally read it years and years ago. And when I first read it, I was captivated. Like, I thought it was awesome. And in this reread, I think I was a little disappointed with how much it drug. I didn't remember how slow it kind of went through the middle of it. And and I guess I didn't also, my memory of it was, oh, it's written in letters and diary entries. I knew that, but I guess I didn't remember that it's sort of, yes, it still does that through the middle, but it almost becomes, oh, now Seward's just the narrator, and it's the diary conceit doesn't really matter all that much,
Yeah. I thought we would get more of like the beginning, and it would be more of an intellectual exercise or difficulty or treat, however you want to think of it, to piece the things together, and you discover things out of order, which then illuminates them in a different way.
Right.
Which isn't exactly how it continued.
Yeah.
But
I definitely think the first section was the strongest by far.
Yeah.
I was also disappointed. There's one canonical Dracula bit that was not in this book that I was really disappointed. Is his love of Reebok pumps was not in this book. So I learned about an unreleased Nintendo game called Drax Night Out, which was co-sponsored by Reebok. And in it, Dracula acquires Reebok pumps as a power-up to run faster. It's all very gothic except for the Reebok pumps. So the game consists...
He can turn into a bat. Why does he need sneakers?
Because they make him run fast. So in the game, you have to descend this tower to get out into the town. And then once in town, you have to run around and search for Mina.
Oh.
And if you get Reebok pumps, you run faster. So I was really disappointed that Stoker didn't put the Reebok pumps, or at least some kind of love of shoe, into the book.
That's probably why he's dead. He didn't make it because he was busy riding in his box in a boat when he could have just put on his pumps.
He should have put on his Reebok pumps, and he could have gotten away from the gang.
That brings up the question, how much dirt does he need? Couldn't he just stuff his pockets with dirt and fly away or run away? Or
That's a good question. He has to actually sleep
why does he have to... Yeah, he has to be buried in the dirt.
Well, he wasn't buried in it. He was just laying on it. Like it's
laying on top of it.
Like it's a mattress or something. And unfortunately, as we're a podcast without a mattress commercial in here, so are we really even a podcast? I don't know. All right, so overall, it sounds like Bram Stoker's Dracula, worth reading. We enjoyed it. So if you have friends who have never read the book, tell them, go back a couple episodes. They can just listen to it for free. It's a decent enough book. We enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Which brings us to our next book.
Next book.
It's a new book, folks. Very excited. I'm very excited about this one. This one is, again, my pick. This is what I was going to pick for October before I had the grand idea of let's do Dracula for October. Bad idea. Won't repeat that one. But for this book, I've read this before. Meredith has not read this book, but I have selected A Princess of Mars by Edgar Rice Burroughs. This is a classic of the pulp sci-fi genre, meaning there's not a whole lot to it. It is your 5-cent matinee. It's your Flash Gordon serial. This is the sort of the beginning of that era.
So we're stretching the word classic here into other areas.
It's definitely a classic.
Not your traditional classic.
It is a classic of science fiction. It is a classic of science fiction. Had a very unsuccessful movie by Disney a few years ago called John Carter. John Carter is the actual protagonist of the book. A lot of people speculated that a movie title just named John Carter, people are like, what the heck? Like maybe they should have called it John Carter of Mars or something like that to try to let people know, oh, this is a sci-fi movie. It's not just some dude.
They could have just called it The Princess of Mars.
Could have called it The Princess of Mars.
I don't understand why they changed the title.
So
that sounds more interesting.
I've actually read theories that about the same time this movie came out, another movie called Mars Needs Moms came out that was a big flop. And so apparently studio execs were gun shy of the word Mars in this period. So they just called the movie John Carter. Yeah, it didn't do well, but anyway. But this book should be fun. This should just be a light, breezy, fun read. Problematic depictions of Native Americans aside. This is from the early 1900s.
That's what you get with public domain stuff.
It actually is. So we will editorialize slightly and make it a little slightly less offensive. Obviously, it's in the 1800s out in Arizona. There's going to be Native Americans. They're not looked upon kindly by white people in that era. So we'll just change up some offensive language slightly and go from there. But for next time, we are going to read up through chapter 7. So that's where this next episode is going to take us. And you should find that in your feeds tomorrow, inshallah. So read along and listen along, and we will get a cool new book.
Yeah, and if you're new to the podcast and you need to know where to get the books, you can get them on Gutenberg Project. So Google Gutenberg Project, and you can read all the stuff that we're reading for free along with us if you would like. If you don't want to listen to us read and you just want to listen to our excellent discussions.
And if you maybe are new to the pod and don't know what we've read in the past, what I'm going to do, Mare, is I think every 5th book, because I think we're at 5 books now, I'm going to drop an index episode, just a real quick minute. Hey, these are the books we've done. So this book starts at episode whatever. This one starts at episode whatever. So you can quickly hear what we've read and use that as a quick index to find. That way you're not scrolling a podcast feed to find, where did such and such book start? I'll give you quick cues on which episode starts which book.
Cool.
Yeah, most definitely. All right, so that wraps up. Any final thoughts on Bram Stoker's Dracula before we close the pod today?
Don't invite anyone into your house.
Definitely not a vampire.
I'm going to
why just have a mirror by the door? Why would you just have a mirror? Just somebody knocks on the door, you hold a mirror up. Okay, I see your reflection, you can come in.
Well, you could just put a crucifix up on the door. That's all overly religious, but
just grow garlic patches by your door, and then you would always have garlic. You can.
Yeah, garlic flowers are pretty.
Yeah, and you can use the garlic to cook with. Multifunctional. Definitely.
So many ways to protect yourself against a vampire. We really shouldn't be that worried about them.
I mean, honestly, it wasn't that hard. I mean, they just the way that Dracula and the sisters and all the other vampires, they viscerally reacted to the crucifixes. I mean, that was boom. Yeah. I mean, that was almost perfect warning. Yeah, he could not come.
Can't even touch it.
Right. So and the garlic seemed pretty effective as well. He couldn't get in the window with the garlic flowers around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think definitely
So don't be afraid of vampires, everyone.
Yeah, these implements, in the canonical literature, the original book, definitely the crucifix and the garlic were, I think, much stronger than what we give them credit for in modern vampire lore.
Yeah. Zombies are much more frightening.
Yeah, the crucifix is not going to work for them.
They just keep coming.
Definitely. All right, so this is wraps up our wrap-up of Bram Stoker's Dracula. Let us know what you thought of Dracula, or have you read our next book? Are you interested to see a little pulp sci-fi? You can hit us up on social media. We are at CYSTpod on Twitter, on Instagram, and on the Facebook. You can also send us an email. Still waiting for that under 25s. Send us an email, young people. Prove you know how to use it. cystpod@gmail.com. And so that's it for this week's episode. So until next time, just do your homework. I got nothing. I got nothing this week.
Don't bring your baby to class.
Don't bring your baby to class. There you go. Although we do support single moms getting their educations. Stay in school, kids.
All right. So bring your baby to class.
Bring your baby to class. Stay in school. All right. We'll see you next time.
All right. Peace.